Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our registrants, and welcome to this webinar titled Retire on Your Terms, hosted by Carrick Catalyst. I am your host, Yamikani Komoto. A few of you might know me, and I'm very delighted to introduce to you one of my good colleagues who will be joining me, Mr. Craig Hankwebe.
All right, thanks, Yami, for the introduction. Hi to everyone that's on our webinar. Thank you so much for all the activity. I can see you all typing in the chat box now. Yeah, over to you, Yami, again.
All right, great. Thanks and welcome again, Craig. Thanks to our registrants. Again, we can see people are starting to join. So as we're getting the webinar started, I just want to let you guys know this is a very interactive webinar. The way it's going to be set up is I'm going to take us through a little bit of a background, who we are and what we do, and why we've chosen to start this webinar. This is the first in a two-part series, by the way, where we're focusing on helping people take control of their finances and achieve financial freedom. So this first part, retire on your own terms, we're going to talk about why we've chosen the webinar, some of the common misconceptions people have, and a few of the mistakes they make. And then Craig is going to take us through a very practical example where you're encouraged to take your own pen and paper and apply it to your own circumstances. But Craig's going to walk us through a little bit of the retirement planning that we do with a lot of our clients at the initial phase, right? So thank you once again for joining us. Uh, as I said, my name is Yamikani Komoto, and I work for a boutique international financial advisory firm called Carrick Catalyst. Now, Carrick's been around since 2014, and we look at helping uh, individuals across the globe invest in safe jurisdictions in hard currencies for different reasons, right? Now, we take a very holistic approach when it comes to financial advisory. And what that means is we advise not only on passive income investments, so situations like regular savings or things where you have a more once-off payment, but also we look at helping people with emergency funds and banking. So we help people with offshore account creation. We help people with life insurances that pay in hard currency and international properties that are used mainly for investment purposes. Specifically for this series, we're looking at passive income and investments, but please reach out to anyone from the team if any of the other things pique your interest. But as I said, this is retiring on your own terms, right? And me and Craig have hundreds of conversations with people from different countries, different backgrounds, different industries and professions. But one of the common questions that we tend to have is really how do you retire on your own terms? And how do you achieve financial freedom? One of the things that I found that was very interesting is people tend to talk about retirement and financial freedom in as if they're two separate things. And I guess it's because there's this common belief that retirement is kind of like the finish line. You know, when I retire. And one of the first conversations we have, I know Craig has this a lot with a lot of the people he talks to, is he starts off by redefining retirement. And I'll let him get into it when he's going through the presentation. But we look at retirement as not the end goal. It's not typically a finish line. It's literally when you're looking for changing from your typical 9 to 5 or 7 to 5 if you're from Malawi like myself, and using your financial freedom to start living the lifestyle you want to after leaving your formal employment. Now, for a lot of my clients, what retirement looks like is very different, right? Some people want to take their skills and start their own consulting firm. Some people want to switch completely and start agriculture and becoming farmers. Some people just want to play golf 4 times, 3 times a week, or travel to places they never got the chance to travel. But what really happens as you speak to a lot of different people is people start to envision their retirement and And where we always start our conversations is, what does retirement look like for you? What does financial freedom afford you? And it boils down to three questions that we always ask our clients, and we always ask our prospects, and we always ask the people we talk to. So this is where you start writing down. Get your pen and paper out. First question: when do you want to retire? At what age, right? Whether you're 35, whether you're 45, what age would you like to retire? The second question is, what kind of lifestyle do you envision in your retirement? Do you want to play golf 4 times a week? Do you want to travel more? Do you want to take it easy and wind back and visit and you spend some time with the family or start your own consultancy firm? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have in your retirement? And third is, if you were to pay yourself today, in today's terms rather, how much income would you pay future you in retirement? Because essentially, retirement is shifting from your formal employment and using the assets and the funds that you've built up to pay yourself an income so that you can achieve the financial freedom you want. So, third question is, how much in today's terms would you pay future you to enjoy your retirement? Now, Craig's going to, as I said before, Craig is going to take us through a practical example where we look at how we calculate this, some of the things that we should consider when doing this. But a lot of the common mistakes and misconceptions that we find from clients, and Craig, I'm going out on a limb. I'm speaking on your behalf. Not if I'm saying the correct thing. Shake your head off camera if you think I'm lying. But one of the common mistakes that we normally have is people believe their pension will be enough. Listen, Yami, I've been working at company A for a long time. My pension will be enough. In the modern day and age, with a lot of the changes we've seen to different company structures, the reality is banking on one company to be the one place that you work for 25, 30, 40 years isn't really the only strategy you should employ, isn't the best strategy you should employ when it comes to protecting future you, right? Having one job and having one pension building up, which you can only access when you're 65, it's not really everyone's dream retirement. It might be for some, it's not for a lot of the people we speak to. Second common mistake that people make is, I can always start later. Listen, I'm 30 something, I'm 40 something, I want to retire in 15 years. I'll start saving up for my retirement in the last 5 years. Now, Craig's going to show us in the example exactly what the cost of starting later is. So I'll let him take on that. And also another thing that people tend to forget is the time value of money. So when you're making your plans, and I know I asked you to pay yourself in today's terms, but the time value of money and inflation really does erode the spending power that we have in today's terms. And we've also factored that into our example, but it's also something that we calculate and we want you guys to go through with us. Now, without further ado, I want to hand you over to the very talented wealth expert, Mr. Craig Hankwebe.
Right. Thanks, Yami. Thanks for the introduction. So as Yami said, I'm a private wealth manager with Carrick Catalyst here in Mauritius. I particularly help my clients just to navigate the complexities of the offshore wealth management space, mainly within the retirement space, education savings plan, as well as giving access to the international property market. Right. So from there, what we'll talk about is I'll just before we get to the figures, I just want to then try reset the way that we think about retirement. So as Yami mentioned, retirement is not a finishing line. Retirement is simply a period of your life where income from your employer stops coming in, but your expenses do not stop coming. Right, I'll repeat that again. It's simply a period of your life where income from your employer stops coming in, but your expenses do not. Right. So what matters there is whether you have sufficient capital to replace your income for long enough without having to run out. Okay. So in that regard, we'll then just look at the rule of eights, basically, where Yami is saying most of our clients have plans in terms of retirement. Some want to be consultants, some want to be farmers, some want to raise their grandchildren. So currently, if we're looking at it, you are on an 8-hour work day, 8 hours sleeping, and then also probably maybe 8 hours of leisure within that particular confine. So we're looking at about 24 hours in a day, right? So let's take away the compound where we're saying we've taken away 8 hours of work. So that means you now have 8 hours of sleep and then 16 hours of leisure. So all the 16 hours of leisure will pretty much need money, income, such that you are then able to live the best life that you had envisioned yourself for during retirement. Okay, so with that being said, we'll then just look at the time value of money, where the time value of money for me is a simple idea, where $1 today is not worth $1 tomorrow. For an example, Yami, how much were you buying bread or fuel or any other commodity in Malawi 10 years ago?
You've touched a very big pain point right there, Craig. If you ask me how much was I buying fuel for last year, I can tell you that. But the reality is, about 10 years ago, if you're putting a full tank in a reasonably sized car, you're talking about 50, 60,000 kwacha, Malawian kwacha. If you ask anyone on the ground in Malawi today, if you take 50,000 kwacha and ask them for fuel, you're probably getting 10 liters of fuel, which is a very extreme example, but 100% what I understand what you mean when you're saying what 50,000 kwacha got me 10 years ago and what it gets me today is very, very different.
Yeah, so that pretty much speaks to the time value of money, which then leads us right into the inflation conversation, where we're saying inflation quietly reduces what your money can buy. So, for an example, if you were earning 10,000 US dollars 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it's not the same right now. Whatever you were buying for 10,000 US dollars back then pretty much is what you are buying now for either 12, 13,000 US dollars, for an example. Right. So, with that being said, you'll see that nothing much has changed within people's lives. You could have either changed a job, changed places or cities where you are staying, but these are just career advancements or just moves altogether. But what has only changed is the value of money within that particular set time. Right. So this is why looking at today's numbers is misleading. Hence, we look at retirement in future terms, not in current terms. Right. So I'll then just jump into the example that Yami was speaking about, where we have a case study. Let's just name our client Mr. John Doe. He is currently aged 40 years.
I'll encourage all our registrants. This is the point where please take out your pen and paper if you don't already have. Uh, as Craig is going through the example, put your own ages, your own targets when you want to retire, and then just do the calculations as we're going through them.
Right. Thanks again, Yami. So Mr. John Doe, he's earning about 10,000 US dollars per month, I mean, sorry. And then he wants to earn roughly the same amount of money when he has retired. So per annum, it just means he is earning currently 120,000 US dollars. Right. And then, like I said, he's aged 40. He then wants to retire aged 55. Right. So with that being said, that means we have a time frame of about 15 years between now and the time that he's going to retire. Yes. So we're then going to try figure out how much 120,000 is 15 years from now. Okay, so which is where the inflation conversation is coming from. Right, so I'll then just draw this. And then we're saying he is 40 now. He's retiring at 55. He's got 15 years between that. And then 15 years is roughly 180 paychecks, where we're saying 15 times 12 months, that will give us 180 paychecks between the age of 40 and the age of 55. Right, so Yami, I'll also ask you to then take out your calculator and help me with that. I'm sure all our registrants are also doing the same.
Right. So
Right.
usually what happens at this point, we're trying to create a target of how much money we need in future terms. So how much the 120 would be in 15 years to get us the same spending power. Now, I have a handy little paper sheet here that gives me compound inflation over time and the years. If you can, just Google it. But usually in hard currency, we look at inflation between 2.7 to 3.5. If we're just keeping the calculation simple, let's say 3%, right? 3% inflation in dollar terms over 15 years. Now, what that means is $120,000 today times a factor of 1.56
Okay.
means
How
that
much was that?
187,200. So about $187,000.
Okay. Okay. So for ease of maths, like you're saying, we'll call it 187,000 in 15 years. So what we're saying basically is 120,000 that you're earning now currently will be 187,000 in 15 years, right? So this 187,000 is an annual payout that you are expecting, not the full amount that you actually require for you to have as your retirement amount. This should be a payout that's coming from an asset base, right? Just to repeat that, the 187,000 should be coming from an asset base that will pay you that particular amount on an annum basis for you to then go through retirement without running out of any capital. So this means if it's coming from an asset base, we should be then getting it as a return or as interest from an asset base that we hold. So again, back to calculations, Yami, when you speak to your clients, what is the rate of return that they are expecting? Yeah.
Depending on the clients, obviously, different clients have a different appetite for risk. Different clients want a different rate of return. Obviously, you get a bit older, the amount of money you expect from your assets might be a little bit lower. But typically speaking, and for ease of calculation, rather, let's go with 10%. I think that would make it easier for people to say that if my asset base paid me 10% per year, I'll be able to retire and get my income at that 187. Yeah.
Okay, so if we then multiply 187,000 per annum times 10%, it means we'll need an asset base of about 1,870,000 to be paying out this particular amount of 187,000 per annum, right? So how's that making you feel, for an example? Also, please type in the chat box, how's that making you feel? And then
I know, looking at some of the comments here on the chat, and I know personally myself, first time I was doing this exercise, uh, it's a big figure. In my head, I start thinking, geez, I have to get a 1.8 million just so I can retire the way I want to. It's a scary figure at first sight. Yeah.
Okay, well, but not to worry. Again, you'll find most people have real estate, Most people have other retirement plans. Most people have shares, dividends that pay out, on an annum basis. So we can then subtract all of that from this figure. But today, let's just assume we are starting from scratch, no retirement plan, and all we need is 1,870,000 as an asset base, right? So like I said, we have 180 paychecks between now and then. So for us to then get to the amount that we need to be actually saving or putting aside at the bank with zero interest or return on it, we'll then divide the 1,870,000 asset base by the 180 paychecks that we have. So Yami, again, if you were to assist me with that, how much would then that translate to as a savings
we would have to put, if it's just straight into the bank, $10,390 a month. You could call it 10,400 just to make it cleaner, but 390, yeah.
Okay, so that would be like 10,400%. But remember, our client is earning how much?
10,000 per month.
10,000, right? So that would mean he has to set aside all his salary for him to actually get to the amount that he needs to retire comfortably, which is not practical in any case, because you'll find there's school fees that needs to be paid, family needs to be fed, day-to-day living costs must be covered by your salary, basically, right? So we then look at it from an offshore savings space or an offshore retirement plan. That will then give us pretty much 1,870,000 in the same time frame, but with a different savings amount. Because remember, our international plans are pretty much linked to international markets that then give us international rates of return, right? So what if I were to tell you that 10,400 could easily be reduced to 5,400 if we were to calculate that on our premium calculator that we use for our international savings plans? What would you say to that, Yami?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of all the registrants, right? I know a few would agree with me, though, to say that if you told me I could get the same target for almost half the amount that I'll be saving in a bank, I'd be very, very interested to hear how that's possible. And also, that's something I want to do, because it also lets me spend a little bit of my money that I'm working hard for.
Yeah, so with that being said, I think we can then make an example of saying, what if you said you want to start in 3 years' time? So you've lost 3 years worth of paychecks from your 180. How then would that translate into what you're supposed to be putting away?
Right. So if I still wanted to retire at 55, I take off 3 years. That means I have 36 less paychecks. So we divide that same target, 1 million, by 144 paychecks. So we just take off the paychecks we've lost.
Yeah. So we're left with 144 paychecks divided into 1,870,000.
So if I wanted to retire same time, in the same lifestyle, maintaining my income, but 3 years later, I would need to put $12,990 a month. Oh,
right.
Could you write it a little bit down, maybe off the offshore? I think it's going off screen for the webinar registrants. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
So that's scenario 2, where same goals, but we are starting a little bit later.
Okay, starting late, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you can then now see the trend in which you'd have taken if you then delay for a time of about 3 years, starting with 12,990. How would that make you feel if you can start now and only do 5,400 with an offshore plan, or start later on at the bank and do 13,000. That's pretty much a no-brainer. I think Yami will then have to structure conversations with most of our clients and then see how these plans actually work.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Craig, thank you so much for taking us through that. As you can see, and as Craig was correctly highlighting, the way that we talk about retirement starts off very simple, right? What do you want to retire? What type of lifestyle do you want? When do you want to retire? In this example, John Doe wants to maintain his income. He said, listen, I thought I might be living a little bit cheaper, but the reality is medical expenses are coming up. My wife likes to travel a little bit. I want to play golf. The beverages that I drink are a little bit more pricey the older I get. So my cost of living might not necessarily shoot down. So I want the same amount of income. Now, to get to it, we go through this exercise. And as Craig correctly said, it varies context by context. Different people have set up different things now. Different people will accumulate different things over the 15 years. So that target might reduce. But what you have to do is create that strategy, that calculated approach to retirement planning where you say, listen, this is where I'm trying to get. These are my options to get there. And this is how I can realistically achieve what I want to achieve. Now, before we go a bit further, normally what happens when people don't follow a kind of dedicated retirement plan, we have one of three things that tends to happen, right? The first one is, listen, you change the target of when you're going to retire. I was going to retire at 55, but geez, I need more time. So you're either working for longer or you're retiring at a later age. So you might go from 55 to 60, 55 to 58, whatever it is, but you're shifting the when. Number two, you're changing the how you want to retire. Listen, 10,000 a lot, the lifestyle I want, maybe don't need it as much. Let's lower the target. So you're still retiring at 55, but you're changing how you retire and the lifestyle you're going to have. The third thing that happens is, listen, right, I didn't start in time. I've got 5 years left till I retire. I'm just going to have to save more in a shorter time space. Now, it's okay. We have people who manage to make it work. People will save a lot more. People will change their retirement targets. And it's okay to have a shifting goal as long as you create a structure that helps you achieve your goal, because you don't want to now be changing your objectives because of poor planning. So a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the work that we're encouraging our clients to let us help you with, if you don't have a financial advisor, reach out to myself, reach out to Craig, reach out to the team here at Carrick Catalyst in Mauritius. Over the next 10 to 12 days, we're actually focusing specifically on helping people stress test their retirement numbers, look at the lifestyle they want, look at how the figures are looking, and help them take control of their finances so that they get the financial freedom they want and retire on their terms. Now, if you feel like this is something you're interested in, reach out to myself, reach out to Craig, reach out to any of the team. And before I let you go, remember this is part one in a two-part series where we look at taking control of your finances. The next webinar will be on February 12th, if I'm not mistaken, Craig.
Yep.
And we're going to focus in that one on legacy planning and providing education for the kids. Because obviously, a lot of the clients we deal with also have young families and are looking at the rising cost of education. They want their kids to get into the best schools. They also want the kids to have at least a trip back home once in a while. We look at how do we help people with those education plans, and that'll be a webinar in the next 2 weeks. Please look out for the registration links. They will go live in the next couple of days. But for now, I know we've given you guys a lot to think about. I know at this point, a lot of my clients start to say, listen, I might just work forever. But the good thing is we're here to help you get the financial freedom to retire how you want to retire and live the lifestyle you want to. So have those conversations with us. From myself, from Craig, thank you again so much for taking us through that example. And from Carrick Catalyst, I want to thank all the registrants, all the attendees for joining us for this. And I hope to see you in the next webinar in 2 weeks. Craig, I don't know if you have any closing words.
Right, so I'll just close with the following words where we're saying just retirement planning is pretty much about making sure that your compounding outpaces inflation such that your future income pretty much just keeps its purchasing power to buy in future. Hence, we are looking at this from a future point of view and looking at it holistically. So yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for joining our webinar. We'll see you on the next one on the 12th of February. Yes.
All right. Good evening, good afternoon, and good night, everyone, and cheers.